We are going to get straight into it because we've got a lot to get through, and we always like to really jam pack our sessions with lots of helpful stuff for you to take away. So just an introduction, we are the Saltways, and we make ethical and effective films for the third sector, and we also provide training, trying to help as many organisations as we can create meaningful content. So just to give you a bit of an introduction, I'm just going to show you a short film about the work that we do.
There is a tendency in some documentary filmmaking and in the charity sector for you to be viewing someone through a lens, which you are practically, but you want the feeling when you're telling ethical storytelling that you're with someone and they're telling you their story, and it's done with respect.
Give people space and time, because those are the two most important things. And I think just treating the story with respect is really important to me.
You want people to care, then you just let someone see the human behind the story.
Great, so that's hopefully given you a bit of an introduction to who we are. Today, though, we're focusing on Legacy Fundraising Films. So we're going to talk a bit about how we approach our pre-production in terms of the work that we think you should do before you even start creating content. Then we're very lucky to be joined by Lucy from Legacy Voice, who's going to talk about what they've found works in terms of their work, working with legacies. Then we are going to be going through some technical tips of how you can create a legacy film using just your phone. And then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions and answers at the end. But feel free to just pop those in the chat throughout, and we'll get through as many of them as we can at the end. And any that we can't answer, we'll obviously try and answer via email as well. So when we work with charities, we do lots of work in the pre-production, which is the work that you do before you even switch on a camera. So these are the things that we found really important when you're approaching legacy filmmaking. Firstly, do your research. This can be looking at data that's out there in terms of legacy giving. It could be data on, age ranges of people that are most likely to give. It could be on, what inspires them. And then also look at kind of what's just happening in the sector, what's happening in the world. Look at other charities for inspiration, what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. And then also, as well as all the kind of that sort of data side of things, what's really, really, really important, what I encourage all charities to do, is just to speak to your supporters. So even if you don't have any pledges, you don't have anyone that's given anything to your charity before in their will, then you can still have conversations with your supporters and ask them questions like, this is something we want to be doing more of. If you were going to leave a gift in your will to a charity, what kind of information would you like? What do you think is special about the work that we do? So please take that time to do research with your current supporters as well, and that will really help shape the messaging of your film. With that in mind, think about the age of who your legacy donors are. So recent research has shown that, without sounding morbid, if you are wanting to have like a payoff with your legacy communications, and you wanted people to leave a gift in their will in the next sort of 5 to 10, 20 years, then you are going to want to target your legacy content at an older age group. So yeah, just think about when you are creating your content and you're planning it, is this something that I think is cool and I really want to share on LinkedIn because it's conceptual and great and fun? Or is this actually something that someone in their 80s would resonate with? Is it something that they would find interesting and inspiring? And yeah, think about that in terms of what you're creating and the language you use and where you're going to show it as well. Some recent research by Blackboard has shown that the older donors prefer sort of long form storytelling content. So that's something to bear in mind as well when you are thinking about what kind of content you're going to create. Within that as well, think about kind of what are the barriers and the drivers to legacy giving to your organization and as a whole. So that's a question you could ask in your questions and also when you're looking at your research. But barriers might be things like not knowing what their family are going to think if they do live a gift in the will to a charity, or it seems really complicated. So try and address those barriers in your legacy content. And then also, what are the drivers? So what is it that's special about what you do as an organization? What inspires them, and include that within your content as well. You know, things like, we are going to be here still in 50 years. The need is going to be greater than ever. So that's the thing that you can kind of address in your content. Something that we hugely important to us is ethical filmmaking. So I can't go into this as much as I'd like to within this session, but please do just can take into consideration fully informed consent, co-create as much as you can, bring people along for the journey with you, and just respect people's stories, their spaces. And yeah, the you know, legacy fundraising and leaving a gift in a will does need to be dealt with very sensitively. And then something that we've just found in our research and the films that we've created with charities, authenticity is massively important. So even if you are creating something that's a bit more conceptual, try and make it as authentic and real as possible, because that's what helps people connect. So that's kind of all the stuff that we do before. So yeah, before you even get to switching on your cameras, please do just think about what it is that you're going to be creating, the why, and really get into the mindset of who you're creating that content for. And now I'm going to pass over to Lucy from Legacy Voice. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, Emma. And hi, everyone. Just bear with me while I share my screen. Hopefully, in a moment, everyone can see that okay. Great, thanks, Emma. Yes, so hi, everyone. So as Emma mentioned, I'm Lucy. I am a consultant at Legacy Futures. Really great to be here with you all today. But over the next sort of 10-15 minutes, I'm going to be sharing what we think makes a good legacy film. So I'll take you through how we sort of critique legacy marketing communications and materials, some very practical guidance on how to plan your legacy film, and some common pitfalls to avoid. And then I'll share a few good examples of legacy marketing films and highlighting what makes each video good in our eyes. So just to start with, what does good look like? Well, when we review charity legacy content, we use a framework that we call the 5 I's. And I thought that would be really useful to share with you today. And this can be applied to various communications, including video content. So the first I is around implementation. So when we look at a charity's content, we really start with the basics. So we look at simple but important things like, is content accessible, for example? Does the video use captions, and is there high contrast between the text and background? Is there a good contrast in images? And we also look at how appropriate content is. So with things like the perceived costs of production, and we check for consistency with other legacy communications and other marketing and PR outputs. We then have a look at impact. So impact is really all about the quality of your design, your visual impact, and how original it is. So with the design, how good, again, is the use of imagery, of colour, and the layout. And we look at the use of language and quality of copywriting and editing. Is there an original story, and does the content appeal to emotion? And when we come on to inspiration, so we're really thinking about, does it appeal to legacy motives? So does it encourage people to look back at what's been important to them, for example, and also look forward? So what do they want to leave behind following their death? And does it communicate what a person's gift might achieve? So why this charity? Are there tangible examples? And does it share that real positive future vision? And is it donor-centric? So more you, less we? And we know social influence is really important. So again, does it showcase others who have left a gift in their will, helping to make this the norm amongst your viewers? And an important aspect, which I'll come back to, but does it use storytelling, whether that's beneficiaries or donors? And hopefully there's a lack of legal language, which can be really off-putting. And then the 4th I is integrity. Sorry, I think I was just muted there for a second. Hopefully you can hear me still. So yes, it's all about, like I said, generating trust, and it's important to acknowledge the charity's relationship with the donor, so to thank them for their support and consideration. And does it communicate the impact on the beneficiary and demonstrate how money will be used, including how the charity honours promises? Communications should demonstrate organisational values and show the impact of their work. And finally, we look at information. So this focuses more on the practical aspects, such as providing clear and relevant information about how to actually make a gift. This might be relevant in videos. So practical information, you might want to include something around, the types of gifts. Is there information that you can counter common barriers? So even using language like after you've looked after your loved ones first, you might consider leaving a gift to the charity. And really importantly, and I'll probably come back to this a couple of times, but is there a clear call to action at the end of the video? So what do you want people to do after they've watched it? And what we hope is by using the 5 Eyes framework, this might help you to focus on the things that we know are really important with regards to a legacy audience and what is most likely to motivate and inspire them to give. And we hear all the time about the power of storytelling within legacy marketing, but I just thought it would be worth taking a few moments to explore why we should tell stories. And firstly, it creates memorable content. So when you think back on some of the adverts or presentations you've seen, chances are that you can retell or remember the ones or remember stories. They're just a great way to educate and inform in a way that sticks in people's minds. Facts and figures might be interesting, but it really is stories that provide relatable content that people can identify with and have empathy for. So we really want people to feel something after watching it. And following the story of one person, or it might be an animal, for example, can show us the reality of the situation and the impact of the charity's work in a far more engaging and inspiring way. And stories can really help people connect on that emotional level to a charity's work and mission. And we know that, again, emotion really drives behaviour and action. And stories can help to explain some quite complex subjects much more easily as well. And when thinking about, again, what good looks like, it's also important to think about the practicalities as well. So I've listed some points to consider when planning and creating your legacy film. So before you begin, you really need to be clear on the purpose and message of the video. So what is the purpose of the film? So for example, is it to educate people, mobilize them, raise awareness, or drive donations, for example? And what are the key messages that must be included? So you need to make sure they're weaved in at some point throughout the video. And think about where the film will be shown. So is it for social media? Is it for your website? Is it to send out via email? Is it to a warm or cold audience, or both? And will people be watching it on the move, so without sound? So it's really important to think about the video length. So you might want a shorter 30-second version, for example, for social media, but a slightly longer 2-minute one that you might put on your website. So obviously it's easier to create the longer version and then edit it for shorter versions where needed. And when someone again has finished watching it, do they need to be signposted to your website or web page? You might even decide to include a QR code. So think about the journey of where they might go once again they've watched the video. And think about the voices you want to use. So who will actually narrate the video? And you need to remember that engendering trust is really, really important. And whose voice also do you want to be heard? So for example, it might be beneficiaries, it might be your CEO or founder, or volunteers. So really think about that mix of voices as well. And then design and content. So where will the film be recorded? So you might choose to film in several places to showcase your services and work. And if you're a local charity, having shots of the local area might be quite a nice addition. But think about the film's background and try to minimize distractions where you can. And will your film have things like music? So if so, what emotion do you want it to give? And will it be scripted? Or you might be happy to just let people speak really freely and edit it where necessary. But finally, make the video accessible to all. So I did touch upon accessibility earlier, but it's so important to think about how to make it accessible. So think about subtitles, including the font and colour for those who are deaf or hard of hearing, and consider the narrative, the sound, the voiceover for those with visual impairments. And as you can imagine, we do review a fair amount of legacy marketing communications, including films. And there are some common pitfalls that we see. So again, I thought I would just briefly share some of the pitfalls so you're mindful of them going forward. But we often see great videos, but they're not often accessible. So again, they have a lack of subtitles is a very common example. So people who can't hear or who are in situations where they can't have the sound on, can't follow what is being said. So this can be a real barrier to engagement. We often see videos that are, again, inspiring, emotive, well produced, but there is that no call to action. So the viewer might be moved by what they've seen, but they aren't motivated to take action as none is being suggested. And going back to the point about storytelling, so without it, content struggles to be memorable and stick in people's minds. So if you can incorporate some storytelling, I would absolutely recommend that. And I'm sometimes surprised to watch a video where there is no thanks or just general appreciation giving. So it can really leave people feeling undervalued. And finally, just make sure the legacy film messaging is consistent with your legacy proposition and other marketing communications. So it shouldn't be a standalone piece. So your film should feel like it's part of a bigger proposition. So they complement one another and reinforce that legacy message. So I've now just got a few examples of what we think good legacy marketing films are. So I'd like to share these with you. These are just some examples. There's loads of great ones out there. So I'm sure you can go away and obviously have a look at some and see what you think is good as well. But the first one that I will share with you, and I'm hoping that the sound is going to work. Sorry, bear with me. For some reason, it's not playing, which is typical. Okay, so I'm not sure why that isn't playing. Let me try the second one. If they don't work, what I'll do is I'll pop the links in the chat so you can see them afterwards as well, if I can't get them to go. I had 3 lovely videos to show you, but there's always a tech issue, isn't there? Yes, for some reason it's not letting me play it. So I'll just very quickly go through what I was going to share with you, but you may have seen Battersea's video, which is definitely one of the most positive and memorable legacy TV adverts I have seen recently. So it has been going for a couple of years now. But the music and visuals are really upbeat and full of life, and it focuses on the positive difference that gifts in wools make to the lives of the animals that Battersea supports. And it really does showcase the animals not as victims, but as loving companions, bringing joy to their owners' lives. And it also puts the emphasis on the you and the difference that supporters make. So again, making them feel really valued. And this does really well on inspiration and appreciation. So going back to those 5 eyes. And they really have a clear call to action as well, and have done well to make sure that they use subtitles for those who aren't listening to the sound. And this one is one from Bernardo's. It's called Be More Gladys. So with very few words, this video gives so many relatable scenes, actually. So I love how this video uses somebody called Gladys, who is a pledger. And throughout the shots, we see the joy that she gets from watching the impact of her work and her gift, sorry. And there is an energy about the video. So the music and background, the noise really helps to build the energy throughout. It's really inclusive. So it features people from a range of backgrounds. They remember to use subtitles and have included, again, a clear call to action at the end. And while this is clearly a well-produced video, lots of the footage is actually of everyday actions, which you could easily capture on a mobile phone, for example. And this example was from Cancer Research UK, so it could easily, again, have been recorded using mobile phones. It's simply a selection of very straightforward person-to-camera shots. There's a really clear message in this video, so it's shared through many voices, all of whom have a shared goal, which is to beat cancer. And they use a diverse range of people to widen the relatability for audiences and show a range of people's connection as well. So there's people who have cancer, there's family, friends, scientists, each making their own pledge. And this video does well to motivate action because it's really inspiring, powerful, and relatable. And like I say, I'm very sorry that I haven't been able to share these, but I will put the links in the chat. So just to close, I thought I'd round up with a few very practical takeaways from the lessons that we have learned. So just be very clear who your audience is. So this will help you decide on the messaging and channels that you use. Know what you want people to think, feel, and do. So it's really important to make people feel something so they're motivated to take action. Tell a story, so make it emotive and inspiring, and this will stick in people's memory and again make it more relatable. Make the video as authentic as possible. I know Emma, sorry, mentioned this earlier, so just be really unique. So focus on what makes your organisation special and what's important to your supporters, and include that call to action so people know what they can do. So for example, visit your website or download a guide. And ensure content is inclusive and accessible as possible. So you need to appeal to a wide range of people. So always keep these points in the back of your mind, including having diverse representation of your different audiences in your video as well. Okay, thank you so much. I will stop sharing now.
Thanks, Lucy. I have just seen a comment in the chat about examples from smaller charities, so that we've got loads of those, and I'll include them in the follow-up email so you can see some inspiration from smaller charities as well. But I just wanted to share a film that we've just produced with an absolutely incredible charity called CoppaFeel. And this will hopefully give you some context to what Pete's going to go through in terms of creating content using your phone. Because although we did film this, a lot of the principles that you'll learn in the next part of this session, you could take away from being able to just do it using your phone with some, tips and tricks. So I'm just going to share this lovely film with you now. Hopefully everything works. Lucy's giving me the fear a little bit.
My name is Sue Hainsby. My daughter Leanne Hainsby was diagnosed with breast cancer. I have to be honest, when she told me, I really just thought she was just very, very stressed. They did an ultrasound, mammogram, and then back in the room, and the breast cancer nurse was there and said, that's, very sorry, I think you got cancer. Leanne's cancer was moving very, very quickly. We could have been looking at a completely different scenario, and that's what we need to start working to, just making sure that these cancers in these young people are detected early, because that will save lives. You don't ever think that cancer is going to come for your child. You think it might come for you or your parents. And when it does, you want there to be support and knowledge out there so that they have the information they know to check, so that they catch it early, because early detection is vital. So it became important to us as a family to get the message out there. My husband and I have redone our wills since Leanne's diagnosis. We have added in that we will be leaving some money to CoppaFeel as a legacy donation to enable them to continue and to maybe help someone else that finds himself in Leanne's position. A gift in your will enable CoppaFeel to increase this awareness with social media campaigns, getting out to events where young people are going to be, spreading the message, spreading the words, and then also enabling them to get in the room in front of policymakers and get things changed as they should be. It could be the gift of life to a young person.
Great. So I'm now going to hand over to our creative director, Pete, who's going to talk you through how you can create a legacy film using just your phone.
Hi, I'm Pete. I just to introduce myself, I'm creative director at the Saltways. I'm also come from a background of documentary making, and that's kind of where I entered the charity sector as well. So my background is in storytelling, and that's kind of my area of expertise. But what I want to do today is just go through some like simple tips so you can start creating things on your phone, have a bit more confidence, kind of give you a nice stepping off point to practice, and then get some films made. So what to film? So this really doesn't have to be that complicated. That film you just saw was basically an interview and then just what we would call B-roll or behind the scenes kind of footage. And that was all filmed within, I would say, probably about 3 hours. But you can just get you can make effective films as long as, you know, it's always important to, when you're deciding what to film, to go back to the research you've done to start off with. So you have your bullet points, you have your you know where this film is going to go, what platform it's going to be on, the audience you're reaching. All this stuff has been done, and then you can start to decide, oh, maybe this story would work, or maybe this person's story, or it could be a simple thing, just like a straight call to action of just being filmed on your phone. So there are different options of what you can film. So interviews, like we just saw, someone talking to camera or off screen. So that could be addressing the camera or addressing your phone, or it could be you filming someone and talking to them, and then that's basically just an interview. And then think visually. How can you support the story visually? So anything that any story that you're going to tell, it makes for much more engaging content if you can cut away and give the film a bit of life. So in that film, we had, you know, the interview, but then we also went out on a walk, and it was the contributor's favorite place to go and walk and kind of like relax, and that had a nice kind of reflective feel to it as well. It was quite pretty looking. But this could be, you know, behind the scenes work that you do as a charity. It could be an event that you've gone to, some fundraising thing. It could be anything, or it could just be very specific to what the story is anyway that you're trying to tell. And then show the impact of your work, which is, it's always really good, I think, with especially with legacy films as well, depending on what you do, to show where the money is going to go. And usually that is work, and some of it can seem quite mundane to you, like being in the office or whatever, or you know. But a good thing to do, the tips that I always give is, once you start filming on your phone, start trying to gather content, is just to keep getting it and then have just a bank of it. So anytime your charity's doing something, or you're going off to do a bit of work or whatever, you just start filming these things, and then, you know, they can go into either an album on your phone or like a hard drive or onto your computer and or on the cloud, and then you keep them as just like things that could be used in videos further down the line. Okay, so this is just going to be very practical tips now. So if you get your phone out, if you can, if you're not using it, and just go onto video mode, I'm just going to go through very quickly what the settings are that I find are kind of optimal for this, for shooting on your phone. If you see in this image of the dog, the top image of the dog, this is an iPhone, and on the bottom right hand corner it says 4K and 30. 4K is just the size of the image, and 30 is how many frames a second it is. Those are the settings that I would do on your phone, and that goes for any phone, Android as well. The best thing to do, so you want to be looking at resolution, so 4K. You don't want to go to 8K or 6K. It's just not really worth it, I don't think. And then below that, if you're trying to like zoom in or do some other stuff after, I would say that 4K is the best way to go. And on the bottom image as well, you can see it on the right hand side, the second icon down, that's on an Android. It says FHD and then 30. So you would want to change the FHD to 4K. But if you can't do that now, whatever, just Google it or go on YouTube and you'll see how to change the frame rate and the resolution of your phone. And then just quick tips: clean your phone lens before shooting. This is like something that's really easy not to do. And, you know, I've done it professionally where I haven't cleaned my lens when I'm shooting a documentary, and it's a really annoying thing to come back to once you get it onto a bigger screen, because you can't go back and shoot it. And then decide whether you're going to film in portrait or landscape mode. So that just depends on where this is going, really. I would always shoot in landscape, because you can always crop in after, and so you're just covering more bases. The only way I would shoot in portrait really is if I was absolutely sure that this is just going onto, you know, like Reels or Reels or whatever the other ones are. Anyway, something that's definitely going to be put on portrait or TikTok. Portrait, and you're just going to, you know, do it. It's going to be a quick thing that you just kind of upload. Then I would probably shoot in portrait. Otherwise, I would always shoot in landscape. Just, yeah, because you get more options after. Make sure your phone is charged and you have enough storage space. It's like another thing that sounds very simple, but yeah, you can also, if you start to shoot content, um, you have your phone in your hand the whole time. You can actually like, go back through, say, what you've shot, and you might delete some bad takes or some things where you kind of screwed up and you're shooting someone's ankles or something. Just to save on storage space. And then what I tend to do is I have a hard drive, and then I just put my well, transfer all my stuff onto that, and then I just keep them off my phone so I have space anyway. Turn on airplane mode to avoid disruptions. Yeah, you don't really want, especially if you're doing an interview or something, notifications and sounds coming up. So that just will stop that. And then turn on grid lines. So I find this really helpful. So you can see on these images that we have like a grid. So it's like split into thirds horizontally and vertically. If you go onto your settings and go onto camera, so settings, camera, then you'll see that at some point it says there's a little tick or whatever, like to turn on grid lines. That's on an iPhone and also on on an Android. I think it's the little cog, and then you can just turn on grids. And that just helps with composition. And we can kind of go into a little bit of that after, but I use that on my professional cameras as well, and it just helps you, keep someone's head in frame and like make it look more pleasing. It gives you a little guide to look at as you're looking through your phone and shooting. So autofocus, exposure, and zoom. So focus is just what is sharp in the image. So in this left-hand image, the dog's face is sharp. In the right-hand image, it's the little Buddha. And you can sort of see there's just more clarity to it, a bit more contrast as well. Exposure is just how light and dark it is. And zoom is just zooming in or out. So here's my tips for this stuff. So your phone is constantly kind of trying to second guess what you want in focus and correctly exposed. And usually they'll pick up on faces. However, sometimes it can get things a little bit wrong, or it can do stuff in the middle of while you're shooting something. Like say in this image here, it might be that it tried to expose the outside because we're by a window and not the inside, and it would, it could be doing stuff that you don't want it to do. So a good thing to do is just whatever you want exposed in the image and in focus, just tap onto the or tap and hold until you see this AEAF lock, and then that will lock all of the kind of automatic stuff that your phone does until you finish recording. That's just really, really useful. And you can see on both images we've done that. So the dog in the left-hand image has been locked, and then in the right-hand image it's the Buddha. And then I would say for zoom, I would not use digital zoom. So what I mean by that is that on the back of your phone, if you look at the back of your phone, you can see how many lenses you've got. Those are that's you only want to switch between the lenses. You don't want to like pinch or pull into an image because that will just, all it does is digitally expand the image. So you're just reducing the quality. And if you want to, you can do that in post-production. So when you get it onto when you get it onto a computer or you do it on your phone, if you're editing on your phone, you can then like crop into a bit or zoom into a bit. There's no point in taking away that option while you're shooting. Okay, lighting and audio. So we can see two images here. One is really badly exposed. So the thing that is properly exposed in this image are the blinds behind this guy. And then the bottom image is what I would consider correctly exposed. You can use most of the time, and I tend to try and do it, is just natural light. So these are both being lit. This is both natural lighting. So that's just reflective light from the sun, basically, in the room. So what we've done there is just we've moved this person, let's say, away from the window. You can still see the kind of light of the window on the side of her face. And also there's light from behind, which is like helping separate her from the background. And that just helps create a more natural and flattering light. It's just the reflective light in the room rather than the direct light from the sun of being stood right by the window like this guy is here. So if indoors, position light sources to illuminate someone's face. So yeah, if sometimes you're going to be in a say like an office with horrible overhead lighting or whatever, you just have to kind of move someone around and experiment. Just look through your phone because that's what's going to be filmed. If there is overhead lighting, have someone stand kind of about a meter in front of it, so it's kind of lighting their silhouette rather than lighting the top of their head. Um, and yeah, and just you can turn on lamps, move things around, shut blinds, see just experiment a little bit. And then if you're going to do say it's a place you're going to shoot a lot of stuff maybe in your office or whatever, then you could then once like the spot that has the best light, you can then start using that. So avoid using a phone light. So the kind of light on your phone looks a bit kind of horror movie-ish. And then ring lights are a great additional kit. Yeah, ring lights are they're relatively cheap, they're easy to use, and they do give a soft kind of flattering light. So if you're going to be doing more content, it might be useful to get it. If you can use an external microphone, so these are cheap and make a huge difference. So the microphone is, on your phone. So the further away you get from the person that you're interviewing or yourself, the worse the sound quality is going to be. However, if you use an external microphone, which can just be, some Bluetooth headphones, or you can invest in a little clip mic, which are relatively cheap now. You see a lot of TikTokers using them. Then it's just one less thing to worry about. And then test the audio before filming, make sure there isn't too much background noise. So that just means you can just listen to it. So have a little sound check, listen to it, and then come back, and then listen through your headphones. That's what I would do. And then, don't listen for wind noise, background noise, shut a window if you need to, if it's like traffic or whatever. But yeah. Framing and background. So framing is just, the framing of how you're shooting something. On this images, you can see that if you're looking at your thirds, which we do, the grid lines, the top image, you can see that she's sort of sat on the right hand vertical third, and her eyes are kind of on the top horizontal third. And that's like a pretty good rule of thumb where you want people to be with a little bit of headroom as well. And then you want someone looking into the space in the frame. So she is looking into the space in the frame, which is on the left-hand side, and that just makes it look like more pleasing to the eye. These examples are both someone doing an interview, so it's talking to someone off camera. Whereas if someone's talking down the lens, so to the phone, then you want them kind of in the middle instead. That just looks nicer. Avoid cluttering and distracting backgrounds. So yeah, that makes sense. You don't want things that are going to distract from the video, the person that's in the video. Avoiding using digital zoom, we went through that. Frame your subject slightly off center for dynamic shots. Yeah, we've got that. Leave some space, negative space in the frame. It's kind of the same thing. Okay, invest in a tripod so you don't have to spend a lot. Why I would use a tripod, even on the things that you like, if you're just making a phone film, is that you don't have to, because most of the time you're going to be shooting this stuff on your own, probably. And it just means you can set up the frame, set up your interview, put it on a tripod, and then just make sure, and then just do the interview, like concentrate on getting a good interview. So yeah, that's where I would use that. And then interview techniques. So, yeah, you just want to be sort of as natural as possible. You want everything if it is natural and it comes from the heart, it's just generally more engaging. And that can be anything really. I think as soon as you start having stuff that sounds a bit scripted, or I can hear kind of like bullet points when we're interviewing people, or if it's too prepared, you lose that. It just doesn't engage. You lose that kind of spontaneity of it, and you lose some of the passion, I think. And a lot of people, working in this sector are very passionate about what they do, but can get bogged down in the language of it a little bit. And I think really just people engage with things that are from the heart. And so you want to be as close to that as possible. And then ethical considerations, so just making sure that people are okay. that they understand what they're doing, that they feel part of it as well, is always really good, which we would always do. So let them feel like they're part of the creative decisions that are being made as well, that you're not there just to kind of come and shoot them and then leave, you know. So yeah, be natural. It's just a chat. Build your questions from your key messaging. So you're always going back to your key messaging, why you're making this film, how you want people to film, to feel when they're watching it, and then you can go back to that as you're making your questions. Basically, have you covered all these bullet points that you were gonna that were there at the start of the filmmaking process? And then use open questions. Yeah, so you want it to be conversational. You want people to open up. You want, like, a question that I would is, how did that make you feel? Like, as a follow-up thing. Like, it's you want it to, yeah, you want the person to open up as much as possible. So leave gaps, let people fill the silences, and let them feel more comfortable. Usually, the more conversational it's going to be, the more they'll open up, and the better the film or the content that you're filming will be anyway. But yeah, and then listen and follow up and follow up. So that's just one of those things that don't be too engaged in your questions once you get there. Prepare yourself, look at your questions before. Then once you get there, it's all about the conversation. And then just to recap now, so practice framing and lighting so it becomes more natural to you. So this stuff, it's not going to be perfect when you first start. No, like, that would be insane if it was. You'd be incredibly lucky. But you just want to keep practicing, make more content, and then it will just get better. Invest in some decent equipment. You don't have to spend a lot. So we do give out a recommended list of like a mic, a tripod, and camera, which are all mic, tripod, and ring light, which are all relatively inexpensive. If you're interviewing someone, preparing your questions in advance and share it with them. So yeah, it's good to share kind of definitely what it's going to be about, and like, make someone who's your filming be part of the process, so they're not, so it's not a shock. They should feel part of it, and you'll make a better film if they are. Make sure you have consent and permission to film people and places. So yeah, I mean, you would definitely have permission from the people you're with, but then, like, that, it's just good practice, that stuff. And then delete old takes when you don't need them. That's just practical advice of, if you don't need something, just get rid of it. It's just going to be taking up space on your phone.
Great, thanks, Pete. So hopefully from that you'll be able to have taken some top tips of how you could create, a legacy fundraising film using just your phone. And I think especially the kind of framing, lighting, and interview techniques are really important for when you are interviewing people for authentic content. Just wanted to tell you about an exciting new program that we're going to be launching at the end of February, which is called our Community Studio, where non-profits become creators. So we are currently in the final stages of preparing a online program which is going to teach you how to plan, film, edit, and then release and review video content using just your phone. And there'll also be lots of resources like consent forms, risk assessments, all of that stuff. So we're not quite ready to launch it yet. We're just testing it still at the moment. But I think Sarah's going to put the link to sign up to be on the wait list in the comments box, and we will be doing a discount for people who are kind of the first to sign up. But what we really want to do is kind of build a community of support for people who are working in non-profits and are creating content, whether that's on their phone or working with agencies where they can, peer-to-peer support, and also just sharing learnings, and for us to be able to do more sessions like this that kind of help you develop your skills as in the wonderful organizations that you work in. So yeah, we're actually doing quite good with time. That's surprising. So yeah, thanks so much. Follow us on social media, and our website is thesaltways.com. Lucy's email as well, I'll pop it in the follow-up email, as well as a link to a PDF which will have stuff about the steps that Pete went through, and also the link to the equipment. If you just sign up to our newsletter, then you can get that for free. And now I think if I'm going to stop sharing, we can answer some questions if anyone's got any.
We've had a few questions come through. Feel free to pop some more in if you've got any more questions now you're reflecting on that session. I'll just go through. Some have been answered, or there's been comments made in the chat box as well. But starting with Joe's, would you, I guess I'll aim this one probably at Emma or Pete, would you share questions with interviewees beforehand, or can that potentially make the interview feel a bit stilted?
So what we tend to do is, if we are interviewing someone, we will talk to them about what the film's about, tell them about the kind of questions we're going to be asking, but not give them the actual specific questions, because it just makes it, firstly, it means that on the day, all you're doing is reading questions out rather than having a natural conversation. But it also means that they will just get more nervous because they start rehearsing the answers in their head. And then it just comes off as being quite scripted. I know that, trustees, CEOs, senior management do like to know what questions it's going to be, and we have had that situation. And if that does happen, and it does sound quite scripted, what we do is we just ask the question again, but in a different way. So it might be, what do you love about working with this organisation? And they've got this scripted answer. And then we might just ask it in a different way, saying, why did you start working here? And it's kind of answering the same question, but in a different way. So we don't share the specific questions, but we do give people an idea of the kind of things we'll be asking.
Yeah, I would also just add that when we do have if we do have interviews within it that feel a bit too rehearsed, they tend to just not get used, because when you start going through the footage, the engaging stuff just comes to the fore anyway. So I think it's like you'll sort of see that as well when you start making videos anyway, that the better ones are always, even if you don't know if they're rehearsed, the better ones are the ones that come from the heart always.
Thank you. So Sarah had messaged, and she's from a homeless charity, and asked how could they reach people to consider giving a legacy to their charity when there's much more well-known causes and bigger charities to compete with. And Helen backed that up as well, asking for tips to cut through the voices of larger or better known charities.
That's kind of one of the whole reasons that we do these sessions, is because I used to work in actually a youth homeless charity, a small one, and this is how I started the Saltways, because I started to make content using my phone, and fundraising grew, and then I was able to get budget for bigger things. But I think that the thing with small and medium-sized charities is that if people just knew about the work you were doing, they would be so inspired by it, and they would be so much more likely to give to a small local organisation that they can see the real impact it's having on their community than they would the bigger charities. So I would just start by building relationships with the people that you support, sharing content that's, talking about the impact you have, really leaning into the size of the charity that you are, and how hard you're working. So showing the really authentic behind the scenes stuff, telling stories about the people that you help, build those relationships, and then start drip feeding the legacy content. And just start really softly, but have conversations with your current supporters, saying, why would you, if you were going to leave a gift in your will to the charity, why would that be? And then you can start using that to kind of build your key messaging from. So I think it's about playing on your strengths and just letting more people know about the work that you're doing, would be my advice.
Yeah, I would just, from a filmmaking stance, it's like ideas cost nothing, that it's your work will speak for itself. So everyone has a great film in them. Every organization does great work that we speak to. So and that cuts through. Like if you can make something really engaging for not a lot of money. You just need to, have the tools to do it.
Thank
Just
you.
to add to that, if that's all right, because just again to reiterate storytelling, if it's just one person's story, it can be incredibly powerful. And actually, Centrepoint is a charity that do that really well in terms of bringing to life, the reality for people and their dreams, and just making it about one person rather than lots of facts and numbers. I think that is the approach I would take. And also, you know, where will you reach your audiences? So just think about the channels as well that you can get those messages and stories out there too.
Thanks all. So another question from another Sarah. We are a hospice which supports adults with life-limiting illnesses and families with loved ones who are expected to die soon, including children. From your perspective for a legacy film, do you think it's better to feature an adult or child talking about their support at our hospice?
I think that asking a child and being able to make that real emotional connection is, firstly, it feels a bit unethical to me. And also I think you can't expect a child to be able to say everything about the wonderful work you do, because for them it's just their life in that moment. So I think it would be better to interview parents talking about their experience, but then if they are comfortable with their child being filmed, film some footage with the child as well. And you could ask the child questions like, what have you been doing today? Or do you like it here? On their level, but you can't expect them to be able to give that more insight and talk about the bigger impact of what your work does as a hospice. So I would interview the family, potentially someone as well, like a front of house work, front service worker, and have footage of the child if the family are comfortable with that. But I wouldn't have it all hanging on an interview with a child, because I think you really, it's risky. And I think also then you also run the risk of the parents potentially not wanting that to be shared if the child passed away, because it could be too upsetting as well. They don't know how they're going to react after that. So there's a bit of a risk involved there as well.
Yeah, we did some work with the Child Brain Injury Trust, and we did include some children in it, but we decided to concentrate on the people who were working at the charity and the work that they did. So it was more about that. Yeah, if that's a good example.
Thank you. So Jess has asked, we've just filmed with the family of a legator and have a lovely film. However, they really struggle to get concise answers on the day. So with lots of channels for video, looking for like 30 seconds, there's not a lot of time, and wondering how you would address that during filming.
I don't think you ever get concise like answers, but it's just that you just have to edit it down. That's it. You just pick your moments, and it might be that you could it could be a series of films. But I would just say, I would just start editing it down, getting what are the key points you want to put across, and then just start with one thing, edit something that's just around that, and then move on, like do some other things after that. But yeah, it's just one of those things that it's like a skill that you have to practice. But we shoot interviews that are, sometimes an hour long, and then you have to get it down to like 2.5 minutes. So it's really hard, but it's doable.
I would always say, also say as well, I think legacy content is a bit different to other content, and I think it would be hard to put together a 30-second clip that someone's going to really connect to and think, oh, I'm going to leave a gift in my will to that charity. I would go for longer form stuff, and that goes back to who your target audience is as well, because if you're thinking that you want a legacies to increase in the next sort of 10 years, then you are going to have to focus on an older generation. And I just don't think that they're going to have that emotional connection with your cause in 30 seconds. So I would maybe just not do it. Sorry, that's probably not what you want to hear, but I would avoid trying to build that emotional connection in just 30 seconds.
I would say that I think there is a tendency for charities to get bogged down in like the detail of what they do. And sometimes you can get something across that is something really simple that just makes people want to find out more. So it might be that there's something in the video that you're like, well, that's a really nice little part of it. And this could just be, then you have a call to action at the end, or find out more, whatever, like, and that could be a way out of it.
Thank you. So just while we're talking about editing, Jess has asked, what cheap or free video editing tools could you suggest using?
So you can use the free ones that we recommend are like CapCut, or there's iMovie as well. CapCut is on your phone, and it's also browser based, and loads of people use it. There's also Adobe Rush, which is like a free version of the professional piece of software. So if you wanted to like have a sort of like a stepping stone to doing more content, you might want to do that. There's also, I can't remember, there's a Windows-based one as well that used to be Windows Movie Maker, and now it's got a different name. But there's plenty of them around. A lot of people use CapCut now because it's really user-friendly. But I also think Adobe Rush is good. I've used that myself.
Thank you. Another question, we've got quite a lot coming through now. Our service users are vulnerable. How do we safeguard them while filming?
That's quite a big question. But just to kind of make it simplifies it, you just need to put them at the center of it. So that's firstly, you need to make sure they can give their fully informed consent. And that's really important. And that is ongoing consent as well. So it's not just, oh, they said yes at the start. You need to reaffirm that throughout the process. So a couple of days before the filming, during the filming, after the filming, let them see the first cut, the cuts after that, give their approval. Make sure you have someone on set that is a safeguarding contact or a safeguarding lead from your organisation. Make sure there's support for them before, during and after the shoot. Make sure that they really understand where the film's going to be shown and how it's going to be used. The last thing you want is if, you shoot with someone who's vulnerable and then they didn't realize it was going to go on Facebook and then you have to pull it all. So yeah, there's lots of different steps you can take, and happy to kind of have this conversation off this call because it's something we're very passionate about. But yeah, I think the basics are just putting them at the center of it and putting their like concerns and putting their wishes at just right at the center of every decision that you make will help kind of steer you in a safeguarding direction.
Thank you. Do you think we've got time for one more, or should we try and answer them in follow-up email after?
Let's do one more.
Okay, Laura, this is the last one that's just come through, so I'm going to read this one. Sorry to anyone else who we've missed, but we will cover them in a follow-up email afterwards. So we're an infrastructure charity that provides pro bono capacity building support to other charities. We're therefore not frontline and don't have direct contact with beneficiaries that are more likely to capture hearts and minds. We capture great feedback from the charity leaders we support. Would you focus on them in our film?
Yes. I think the thing that is really great about the like community foundations or infrastructure organizations is that there's a level of trust that especially with legacy giving that people will have, because you are the best placed people to distribute that income. So if it's a community foundation in Yorkshire, you can really play on that and say, if you're leaving a gift in your will to this community foundation, we will make sure that the people of Yorkshire are supported. In 10 years' time, 20 years' time, we will know what the need is at that time, so you can still help your local community. I think that's a really powerful message. But I would, interview the people in those organisations talking about the difference that you have had, having your support has made on them, and the fact that they can then continue their work. And yeah, I would really play on that kind of, we're the best placed people, like we're the experts in this, that kind of message. And I think, that's probably all we can do because we're bang on time. Well done us. So yeah, thanks so much for coming along. We are going to be doing a specialist topic each month, as well as our other longer version of the workshop. And we will send a follow-up an email with some information, the recording of this, and please do get in touch if you've got any questions or you want to have a chat about film content. Always really lovely to meet organisations like yours. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.